All right. So, real deal emotional intelligence. Here's the thing. Emotional intelligence has been kind of a hot topic in the social science research and psychology world for a number of years, and that's a good thing. Overall, emotional intelligence is a really good thing. But I think that there's actually something kind of missing from the discussion about emotional intelligence. And and I'm going to make the claim that a little bit bold claim that I think that what is out there as a lot of the understanding or the pop psychology understanding of emotional intelligence is a little soft. It's missing a little grit. It's missing a little bit of guts. So I'm going to offer a new perspective on emotional intelligence today. And this is not to say that I'm trying to put down what's out there. There's some really good stuff out there too. But hopefully this will give it a little bit more teeth for you to sink into, and what can I practically really do about it, okay? So as we've discussed in previous classes, this is some of these lessons are building on each other. And if you haven't been here before, I also am confident that you'll get something useful out of it for the first time. But if you want to get some of the lingo that dates back to previous lessons, just check out the first 5. I think this is the sixth week in a row that we've done this. So remember, we talked about our surviving and thriving parts of our nervous system. And so in order to really activate your true emotional intelligence, it's very useful to understand the mechanics of your nervous system. So you got to know what's under the hood, so to speak. And if that analogy doesn't quite work with you, hopefully maybe I'll come up with some other ones as we go. But for today, I'm going to talk about the mechanics of the nervous system and kind of how we can shift in and out of different gears. And so when we are in surviving mode, as we've discussed in previous weeks, we are either fighting, fearing, or freezing. Those are the only 3 options. So any time that we are stressed out, even really, any time that we are feeling overwhelmed, any time that we are feeling angry, afraid, anxious, nervous, worried, hopeless, depressed, down, isolated, numb, we are actually activating the part of our brain that is responsible for us surviving life or death situations. This is also fairly common knowledge in a lot of pop psychology worlds and psychology worlds, that this is really the definition of a biological overreaction, right? We might have a very real problem in our life, and we might have something that we need to take care of. But when we are activating fight, flight, or freeze on a regular basis, day in and day out in our life, when we're, stressed out about going to the grocery store, which may be the case right now with COVID, right? Maybe there is a little bit more of a life or death situation, but that's a whole different topic. But when we are activating fight, flight, or freeze on a regular basis, I'm overwhelmed about doing the dishes, or even I have a problem that is, actually maybe is ultimately life-threatening, like I can't pay my mortgage, right? And so that really is a shelter issue, right? And so we maybe have a family, and that a lot of people dependent upon us being able to pay the mortgage, and there's lots of ramifications there. But the thing is that when we are going into fight, flight, or freeze about that, when we are angry, frustrated, trying to control everything, really trying to force things, that's the fighting part. Or if we're afraid, worried, overwhelmed, nauseous, upset, that's the kind of the flighting part, the fearing part. Or the freeze part is really we're shut down, we're like hopeless, helpless, oh my God, this is never gonna work out, an even deeper level of overwhelm. And that's the freezing part. When we are bringing that energy to our day-to-day life situations, then we are actually deactivating the part of our nervous system that could actually help us problem solve, right? So say we do have a legitimate difficult thing going on in our life. Well, we want our higher thinking capacities, right? We want our rational mind. We want to be able to assess things. We want to be able to think outside the box. We don't want to activate this lower brain response, because that was meant That is it deep in the mammalian and reptilian part of our brain, and that is a survival strategy that is meant for, like, literally someone or something is trying to kill me literally right now, or there's a tiger right there, and it's going to, on purpose, through evolutionary design, that is going to deactivate the higher thinking capacities of our brain, the frontal lobe. Well, that doesn't, why? Well, because if there's a tiger right there, I don't want to waste the time thinking, should I go left or should I go right? I want to just react. So my body evolved, my brain evolved so that it would shut down prefrontal lobe when the surviving part of the brain is on. This is a really, really useful thing if I'm trying to, rescue my child out of a burning building, because I can get into superhuman states of strength and speed and reactivity that are very, very effective. But if I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to secure a new job to pay my mortgage, it's absolutely counterproductive, right? So emotional intelligence is the topic of tonight. What we're talking about is learning about the nervous system and learning how to shift gears. So if I am in fight or flight or freeze, then I'm either revving my engine too high, fight or flight, or I'm idling too low, and I'm not in that zone of optimal thriving. And it's really useful to try to learn the skills and the tools to be able to be in that zone of optimal thriving, especially when we have difficult stuff going on in our life. So forget the fact that it's just more enjoyable, easier on our nervous system, increases our immunity, gives us access to feelings like connection, joy, love, and all the things that we really want out of life. But even if for just simply problem solving with relevant real world modern problems that are not tiger trying to bite my throat literally right now, but are things that are serious that we need to take care of, well, then we need to learn how to shift gears of our nervous system, okay, and get ourselves into a more optimal thriving zone. So like I said, coming back to here, when we are in thriving mode, then we're going to be experiencing states of flow, fortitude, and freedom. We're going to be more free to choose. We're going to be able to think clearly. We're going to be able to rationally assess things. We're going to be able to be creative, meaning we'll think outside the box. When we're in surviving mode, it's automatic, right? We can only do what we've been programmed to do when we are in surviving mode, right? The survival mode is just boom, knee-jerk reaction. You hit the knee, it just responds, right? That is what happens when we are in states of stress. If we are in states of anger, anxiety, or depression, we are in reactionary mode. And when you break down the word react to react, we are reacting the same programs over and over and over again. Evolutionary biology says that was a good strategy, because I don't want to think. I just want to run if a tiger's there. But if the issue is I need to figure out how to pay my mortgage next month, that is not the type of brain operation system that I need working. I need to recognize, oh wow, yeah, I'm afraid, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling worried, I'm feeling overwhelmed, but I need to take the time to slow down, shift into optimal thriving mode so that I can activate the part of my nervous system that can actually come up with a real solution to the problem, okay? In addition to happiness, love, connection, and all the other things that I would like to be enjoying between now and the time that I do actually have to figure out how to pay the mortgage, right? So on the other side of things, whereas this is always automatic and always based on the past, think about it. If it's an automatic reactive program, then by definition, it can only do what it's already been programmed to do. So if you have an autopilot, in an airplane, that plane cannot fly unless it's already been programmed how to make those maneuvers. So this part of our brain is actually more like a computer, that if you you know, if you activate the software, it's going to run its course, right? So if your reactive programming is to have a habitual tendency to be angry, afraid, or depressed, fight, flight, or freeze, then when you get into stress mode, then that is going to be what you are going to do again. And then the more you do it again, the more it is encoded as your reactive programming, and the more likely you're going to be doing it again in the future. So this is where I'm talking about how emotional intelligence has to really have guts. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to override those reactive programs. They are deeply ingrained, they're deeply habitual, and in some ways, our nervous system prefers them as safe. Because, hear me out with this reasoning. If you are here and alive now, and the survival part of the brain is only concerned with you surviving, the survival part of the brain, which is incredibly powerful and complex, does not care about your happiness. Mine does not care about my happiness. It only cares about surviving. It does not care about creative solutions. It only cares about the immediate life or death situation. It doesn't care about, me coming up with some ingenious plan to pay my mortgage. It's just like, there's a tiger here now. I need to either fight it, I need to run away from it, or I need to hide from it. Those are the only modes it can go into. That's all it knows how to do. That's the program. So it's not our fault. It's no one's fault when we go into these states of reactive anger, fear, or depression amidst stress, or as a habit in general. Even when the stress is not there in our life, we stay stuck in those modes. It's not our fault per se. That's just the survival brain doing what the survival brain does. What we're here to talk about is how to learn that that is a reactive program. And just like a mechanic could go in, or a computer programmer could go in and change the program on the autopilot, we can go in with our higher rational thinking brain and change the program. But in order to do so, we need to be good at shifting gears from, if we're revving up too high, we're in fight or flight. So here is the zone, what I'm calling the sweet spot, the zone of thriving. And then above it, our engine is revving high, and we're either fighting or fearing. We're either angry or afraid. And so that's, the engine is revved up, right? But below the zone of thriving, we're idling low, and we're freezing, we're depressed, we're numb, we're hopeless, we're helpless, we're a deer in headlights. And right here in the middle, neither overstimulated or understimulated, we are able to come up with creative solutions. We are able to cooperate with others. We are able to access higher thinking capacities. We're able to access higher spiritual capacities. We're able to be more resourceful, okay? But the nervous system is going to do what it's going to do. You can't override. If your brain thinks that it's in a survival situation, it's going to be angry, afraid, and depressed. And it's going to be reactive. It's going to do what you've already done. It does not know new, it doesn't have new moves, And so if we want some change in our life, if we want to respond to something differently than our knee-jerk reaction has been habitually over and over and over again, have you ever noticed that life is sometimes like Groundhog Day, where we are dealing with the same difficulties, the same problems, the same thought patterns, the same external situations, the same types of relationships, the same dynamics at work? Well, that's because the reactive program, the survival part of the brain, doesn't know new. It doesn't do new. In fact, it says, here I am in the present moment. My priority is survival. Anything I've already survived, meaning everything from the past, leading up until right now, is safe. I don't care about happiness. This is the survival brain part talking again. I don't care about happiness. I care about safety. And safety, what is familiar, what we've already done before, is safe by definition to the survival part of the brain. So it will take, and this is where emotional intelligence needs to have guts, it will take some sort of courage, a leap of faith, if you will, to override those reactive habitual programs, the autopilot, and to do something new. But that is what we are called for, to be in the zone of thriving. To be in states of flow, fortitude, and freedom requires a deliberate choice. Remember, this is automatic. This is a deliberate choice. And people are waiting for it to feel easy and automatic to do what they know that they need to do. But that's not the way this part of the nervous system works. Our higher consciousness is only activated when we choose. We have to wake up out of autopilot and choose love, choose courage, choose joy, choose to do the breathing exercises to get me out into the zone of thriving. It requires choice. And this is a present moment and future orientation. We're oriented to the here and now, but even more than that, we're oriented towards the future, and the future that we are trying to create. Instead of being reactive, over here, we're creative. Okay? So we're taking a ideal, because this is what human beings are good at, is to be able to cognize a better, more idealistic reality, but then we put it into place by acting, not reacting, by acting in line with our thoughts, feelings, and actions, in line with that future that we are creating deliberately. And again, knowing the mechanics of your nervous system is going to help you take this theory that I'm speaking of today and make it reality. Because if you're here, the brain's going to go, nope, this is way too powerful. The survival part of the brain processes 40,000 bits of data per second. The prefrontal lobe that I'm talking about up here processes 40. So this part of the brain where the survival stuff is going on is super, 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 super powerful. Again, designed that way by evolutionary standards because survival is the priority. You know, live and procreate. That's all this part of the brain cares about. Our consciousness, our self, our awareness, our spiritual potential, if those are terms that are good for you, well, we might want more than just to react to the same old patterns over and over again and to just survive. Just surviving, there's no joy, there's no love, there's no poetry, there's no culinary, there's no cuisine, there's no, all of the things that make life sublime happen from the thriving part of the nervous system and are enjoyed within the thriving part of the nervous system in the zone of thriving. So to learn when we are revving high or idling low, to learn when we are revving high or idling low is really important, right? And then to know what to do about it. And so now here we come to my kind of more gutsy definition of emotional intelligence. And that is, emotional intelligence is not just about having a sophisticated emotional vocabulary, an emotional IQ. So I can say, well, I understand the nuances between, guilt and shame and I can label my emotions, I can feel my emotions, I can express my emotions, I can say, this is my truth and I hear your truth, and all these conscious communicating strategies and patterns that are often very well intentioned, and some of them really good, but some of them lacking the grit and the guts of saying what real emotional intelligence is the ability to not just recognize your state, but to change it and to be in charge of your own emotions and to be in charge of your own future that you are trying to create. And instead of reacting to life, to create circumstances. The best defense is a good offense, or as a sports analogy, or to you dictate the pace of your life. If you learn how to use your nervous system, if you learn how to lift up the hood and tinker with the engine so that you can get this sweet spot of thriving even more widely dialed into the majority of your life, well, then you're going to have, not only is your whole system, body, mind, and spirit, going to work more optimally, but you're going to produce and attract better results. And so emotional intelligence, the real deal, emotional intelligence, is the ability to change state at will. So regardless if you made me upset, or if you cut me off in traffic and I get angry, then you are in charge of me. If that's maybe an easy one for people to say, yeah, well, of course, that's, yeah, I know that I need to, not let that person bother me, and I don't even know that person, right? But we do this, right? We let someone that we don't even know, let alone whether or not we would even respect that person, we let that person potentially ruin an hour of our day, spike our blood pressure, break into a sweat, cramp our organs, activate the chemicals that are meant to be able to help me get away from a tiger that's trying to bite my throat, just because they cut us off or they take our parking spot. So that, by definition, makes me a victim. So if you can control me, if you take my parking spot and then I go into a fit of rage that I then brood on, and maybe I don't express it, but then I don't smile at anyone at the grocery store, and then I I knock over something, and I curse under my breath and my blood pressure is raising, and then I get back in my car and I go home, and and your kid comes to say, "Daddy, can we play?" And he's like, "You leave me alone." And you snap at your kid, or right? There's a ripple effect, all because I let that person, my reactive programs, control my emotions. So now, one way of emotional intelligence would say, well, I should understand, I see that I'm angry, I can label that I'm angry, I can recognize that I'm angry. But the ability to change state is really what the real deal is about. It's one thing to recognize it, and that isn't an absolutely essential step. It's another thing to know what to do, how to change gears. So in that case, if I'm revved up, right, think about the qualities of that experience. My breath is going to be fast, right? Because according to my survival part of my brain, I'm preparing to defend my life when I'm angry. That's really what, if you think about it, that's really what's happening. When I'm angry, my brain thinks that it's fighting for its life. So what it does is it tenses. You ever notice you get tension in your neck? Well, that's because you're protecting your vital jugular veins here, right? Do you ever notice that you clench your fists, that you do this? Well, that's because you gird up and you get tense in your chest and you get tense in your stomach. Well, that's because this is where your soft vital organs are. And we go like this because we'd rather take a blow to the back than to the front. We grind our teeth, we growl, we scowl, right? All these things. Now, we might do these on a micro level in that instance in the parking lot, or maybe not. But still, that is all happening. My heart is beating faster. It's a very physiological thing. I'm getting warmer, right? So I can know all these things and then say, oh, okay. So if that type of anger means that my heart is beating faster and my breath is faster and I'm hot, well, then what I can do the opposite. I can slow my breath down, which is going to slow my heart down, and I can get cool. Literally, this doesn't have to be rocket science. It's just about being deliberate and knowing how. It's like my engine needs coolant at that point. And so I need to, roll down my window, crank up the AC, literally, to literally cool down. We even have these sayings in popular English, like chill out, cool down, right? So, and this is just the anger example, right? So I can recognize that there's tension here, there's tension here, there's tension here, there's tension here, there's tension here. Well, if all that equals anger, well, then the opposite equals not anger, the zone of thriving. So I loosen my jaw, I loosen my neck, I loosen my shoulders, I loosen my chest. I slow my breath down. I cool off. I maybe splash cold water on my face. If I'm in a heated situation with a loved one, maybe I take a time out, go to the bathroom, splash cold water on my face. Maybe I take a cold shower. This is just the example of the anger one, right? Fear, I'm also amped up and I'm also tight in those ways. But in fear, my body might tend to be cold. And I might, if you ever notice that you might actually be a little bit shivery when we're afraid. So I might put on a blanket, put on a layer, get myself warm, drink some warm tea, slow my breath down. These are now taking my revved up engine and bringing it into the sweet spot, recognizing that I am responsible. I'm the responsible agent for managing my own nervous system. And if I'm saying that the mortgage situation gets to control my nervous system, or you in the parking lot get to control my nervous system, or my past trauma and my parents get to control my nervous system, or the commercial, or the news report, or the president, whenever any of that stuff gets to control my nervous system, then by definition, I am taking the position of victim stance. And I don't mean that in a judgmental way. I just mean it in a very literal way. If I am not in control of my body, my mind, my emotions, my breathing, my muscular tension, my ability to access higher thinking creative capacities, if I'm not in control of it, then someone else is. And if someone else is, then I'm a victim of something in everything else. If I'm a victim of everything else, then I feel disempowered. If I feel disempowered, then as a human being, that is automatically going to put us in the survival part of the brain with a tendency towards fighting, fearing, and freezing, because I'm literally disempowered. If I feel disempowered, then I have to be defensive. And if I'm defensive, I'm going to be automatic and reactive, and I'm going to be living the past over and over and over and over again. But to be confident, to be empowered, to thrive, to flourish, I need to recognize my state. My engine's revving high, my engine's idling low. If I'm idling low and I'm feeling shutting down, I'm feeling numb, then I need to pick it up. I maybe also want to splash cold water on my face, but I also might want to do some push-ups or get my breath really going, move, because this is wanting me to freeze. So if freezing, if getting still and isolated and lethargic and lacking energy is my response when I'm understimulated, well, then I need to pick myself up and I need to boost my energy, take bigger breaths. I need to, go for a run. I need to get out in nature. I need to enliven. I need to rev. I need to pick myself up and shift into the zone into the sweet spot. So it's about personal responsibility. It's about taking charge. It's about saying I am 100% responsible for my emotional experience of life. That's real deal emotional intelligence. Is my past, you, the commercial, the government, the person in the parking lot, none of you gets to say how I think, feel, and act. However, I also understand that that's inevitable. That's going to happen. But so the guts of the situation is noticing when I've reacted, when I'm hooked, when you, the government, the commercial, the person in the parking lot is pulling my strings, and I'm like a marionette, and I go cut, 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 and I cut the strings and say, you don't get to control me. I get to think, feel, and act in line with my integrity and my values and the future that I am trying to create. Then I am free. Freedom. Freedom means I'm in charge. Emotional intelligence is the ability to change state, not just to recognize a vast array of emotions and be able to articulate and label them and express them. It's the ability to say, yeah, I'm sad, and now I know what to do to get myself in a more optimal state. All right, I'm 1 minute overdue, over time. So I love you all. Have a great night. I hope this is useful for you. Questions and comments are always welcome, and they really help me, by the way. the more live feedback I have, ask some of the people that I work with, and the more I get that feedback, actually, I'm much better with questions than just doing my own thing that I've made up. So feel free, okay? Take care. Love you all. Bye.